Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just analyzing source material. We are attempting to navigate a maze made entirely of words.
We are.
We're plunging headfirst into Mark Z. Danielewski's debut novel, House of Leaves.
And this is a book that, well, it demands you participate. It's infamous not for what it says, but for how it says it. It's this, deeply ambitious work where the physical structure, the typography, even the footnotes are all active characters.
Exactly. And for anyone who's tried to tackle this, it can feel like being buried alive in information. It's confusing, it's difficult, and it's just full of secrets that feel impossible to pin down.
Right.
So our mission today is to give you that much-needed shortcut, a kind of comprehensive guide to the structural gimmicks, the hidden codes, and some of the most mind-bending theories that veteran readers have spent, 2 decades now uncovering.
That's right. But before we descend, we
Yeah.
really have to define the structure because it's the key to everything. House of Leaves is essentially a stack of unstable sources. You, the reader, are reading a novel that contains an editor's notes on a scholarly analysis of a fictional documentary.
And that hierarchy is just so critical. At the very core, you have the Navidson Record, or TNR. It's the supposed documentary film about a family, the Navidsons, whose new home has this terrifying property. It's inexplicably bigger on the inside.
And that leads to this massive, dark, ever-growing labyrinth forming within it.
As that's layer 1.
Layer 2 is Pano's text. He's this old, blind, and very eccentric academic who writes an exhaustively dense, scholarly analysis of this film, which may or may not even exist.
He's describing a visual medium he can't even see.
Exactly.
And then there's layer 3, which is where everything just falls apart.
Yeah.
Zampano's analysis is found and compiled by Johnny Truant, a deeply disturbed, self-confessed drug addict and tattoo parlor apprentice.
And as Johnny edits these notes, he adds thousands of his own highly erratic, chaotic footnotes. He basically creates this parallel story of his own descent into psychosis and paranoia.
So you have the house, the analysis, and the descent all stacked and just completely unstable.
It's not a book you just hold. It's more like an interactive map of mental instability. And to really get it, we have to start not with the plot, but with the very pages in your hands.
Let's unpack that. The structure itself creates meaning. It feels almost impossible to read this book in a straight line, and that's completely intentional.
Oh, absolutely. The physical format, the typography, it's all designed to mirror the story's tension and the character's movement.
And that's what makes the print edition so essential, right? You really can't get the full effect on an e-reader.
Not at all. The arrangement of the text isn't random decoration. It's a thematic tool. Think about the white space.
Right.
When a character is isolated or when time seems to stretch or just stop, the text becomes incredibly sparse. Sometimes it's just a single word on a line stretched over this huge white void of a page.
And it forces you, the reader, to slow way down. That visual isolation mirrors Navidson's isolation inside the endless dark of the house. It just draws out the moment, makes you feel the distance.
But then the experience completely reverses. When Navidson and the explorers are deep in those terrifying, tightening tunnels, the text suddenly compresses.
Oh, yeah.
It gets squeezed into these dense, narrow columns, often with no clear breaks. And that creates this powerful sense of speed, of compression, of claustrophobia.
It forces you into this breathless, rapid pace that's supposed to mimic the panic of being trapped.
It does.
I remember the first time I hit one of the rotating text sections. I was sitting in a cafe, and I genuinely had to stop, tilt the book 90 degrees, and hold it up just to read it sideways. When characters inside the house fall or the environment just suddenly shifts, the text blocks rotate. You, the reader, are physically forced to participate in that instability.
It's an enforced physical disorientation. It's a commitment you just don't see in other literature. And it makes the experience so memorable. It proves the layout is functional, not just clever.
And these visual cues, they even extend to the typeface, right? Signaling the change in narrator.
Yeah, that's a big one. Zampano's scholarly text, for example, often appears in a very rigid, clear Times font.
Which feels very academic.
Exactly. And that choice is a critique in itself. Using this authoritative academic typeface immediately signals Zampano's desire for control, for rational analysis, which stands in this stark, delicious contrast to the irrational, chaotic thing he's trying to describe.
And then Johnny Truant's footnotes, his chaotic commentary that just swallows the main text. That's in a different font.
Often Courier, yeah. Which feels much more like a hastily typed raw manuscript or a personal journal entry. It's the visual signpost for his instability.
But there's another clue in the fonts, right? A really foundational one.
Oh, this is one of the best ones. Pelafina, Johnny's institutionalized mother, uses a specific font, sometimes identified as Dante, in her letters, the whale-so letters.
Okay, so why is that so significant?
Because if you go back and check the title page of the entire manuscript, the one that lists Danielewski as the author, that same Dante font is used for specific parts.
Wait, really?
Yes, and it suggests that the entire narrative, Zampano's manuscript, Truant's footnotes, maybe even the documentary itself, is all filtered or organized or ultimately authored through the lens of Pelafina's consciousness, from inside the institution.
So the title page itself is a piece of evidence. And if she's the ultimate author, it reframes the entire story. The horror isn't in a physical house. It's entirely psychological.
It moves it all into the mind.
Yeah.
Exactly. And let's not forget the color cues.
Right, the blue and the red.
Throughout the book, the word house will often just appear in blue text, and the word minotaur sometimes pops up in red. It links these core motifs across all the layers, suggesting this deeper mythological struggle happening just beneath the surface.
Okay, so since the layout dictates how you read it, let's move to the textual level and talk about the secrets the authors tried to bury. Because beyond the form, the book is just riddled with hidden codes that challenge everything you think is true.
The most famous example, of course, is Pelafina's whale-so letters. On the surface, they're just these rambling, fragmented, often nonsensical letters from an institution. But early readers quickly realized they contained deliberate cryptograms.
And if you follow the decoding process, I think it's taking the first letter of every word or every line, you unlock these hidden messages.
And they reveal some genuinely harrowing backstory. The codes confirm details of sexual abuse, that Pelafina was raped by the institution guards.
Which is just this brutal, real-world horror deliberately hidden beneath all the fictional noise.
The emotional weight of finding that code is immense, because you realize you had to actively dig through the noise to confirm the trauma.
And beyond that horror, the code also reveals this critical hidden exchange that links the narrators.
It does. Pelafina sends a coded message to Zampano. It says, "My dear Zampano, who did you lose?"
And the reply?
The cryptic reply, which some people attribute back to Zampano, is, "A woman who loved my ironies."
Wow.
And that tiny detail just underscores the central tragic irony of his character. A blind man writing a meticulous, detailed analysis of a visual documentary.
His irony is a form of self-contempt.
And this theme of hidden trauma extends to Zampano's own life.
Yeah.
We know he's not just some quiet academic. He's got military history.
Right. He has a trench gun and served in the French Foreign Legion after World War II.
But the true depth of that is only revealed through another hidden detail. The names he cries out in his sleep. People think they're former lovers.
But they're not.
They're not. They are the names of specific bunkers during the spectacular French defeat at Dien Bien Phu in Vietnam.
That reframes his entire history. It suggests the names he's crying out aren't about personal heartbreak, but about this massive historical trauma, and it's probably how he was blinded.
It turns him from a simple blind scholar into a veteran haunted by war. And this is the genius of the book. Every seemingly random piece of flavor text is actually a cross-reference, or a clue.
Even Johnny's footnotes.
Even Johnny Truant's most explosive stream of consciousness footnotes, which seem designed purely to convey his breakdown, they hold technical secrets.
The SOS code.
The SOS code. There's that infamous footnote with a repeated string of expletives. Just this furious chain of fuck me, fuck you.
Right.
Readers realize that if you assign long and short syllables to dashes and dots, that whole passage translates into the Morse code for SOS.
It's the ultimate cry for help, buried under pages of rage and paranoia.
So every layer we investigate, typography, color, code, history, it's all basically an internal citation that either refutes or just complexifies the layer above it.
That attention to layered detail is why people keep coming back to this book, but it all leads to the grand source of debate, authorship.
Who wrote the damn thing?
Right. The book acts as a mirror, shaping the story based on what you, the reader, believe is true. You have to decide.
So let's start with the most personal connection. The theory that Zampano and Truant are father and son.
The evidence for this seems pretty solid, right?
It seems solid. It relies on a diary entry, where Zampano writes that he will create a son in these margins exactly 9 months to the day before Johnny Truant's documented birthday.
That's a perfect chronological link. But hang on, if Zampano wrote that, isn't that just another piece of unreliable text inside an already unreliable manuscript?
Well, there you go.
Couldn't that be Johnny editing his own origin story? Trying to ground his terrifying present in some tragic but at least stable past?
That's the core struggle of interpreting this novel. We can never trust the text's source. And that suspicion opens the door to an even darker theory, that Truant is either a fiction or, tragically, a dead child.
And Pelafina, his mother, she lends weight to this idea. She says in her letters she never actually sees Truant when he visits.
No, she's always told he came by the guards, but she perceives him as always in the ether.
As if he's a ghost.
So if Zampano is the father, then this theory posits that his whole manuscript is an attempt to reconcile this profound guilt over a dead child, maybe the infant that the house supposedly swallows in an alternate bit of TNR mentioned in the appendices.
So the labyrinth is his grief, visualized.
Exactly.
So on one hand, we have this deeply emotional psychological reading where the house is a metaphor for trauma and guilt. But on the other hand, you can read the entire thing as like an intentional academic prank, a biting satire.
Absolutely. Think about the intentional frustration built into reading it. Zampano's academic tangents are excessively dense. They're long-winded, often pointless. They reference fictional experts and non-existent books.
It feels like the author is just mocking overly pretentious critics and academics who, say a lot but ultimately say nothing at all.
That's the theory. And Johnny's verbose manifestos fall under that same criticism. They're not necessarily meant to be profound. They're intentionally empty, frustrating ramblings, meant to mirror the dead ends and the meaningless echo of the maze itself.
The difficulty of the book is a conscious criticism of intellectual posturing.
But if we reject the satire angle, we land squarely in existential terror. If the book isn't a critique of critics, then the house, the labyrinth, is simply a metaphor for absolute nothingness.
So it has no ghost, no purpose, no monster.
None. The horror in that interpretation isn't that a monster lives in the dark. The horror is that the dark is just dark. All the analysis, the fan theories, the codes, they're just desperate human attempts to fill that void and find meaning where the author assures you none exists.
The horror is that it's all pointless.
And this emptiness, however, connects beautifully to the mental decline themes. The house's impossible geometry, the shifting dimensions, the dark recesses, it directly reflects the broken landscape of a schizophrenic mind.
Johnny's descent into psychosis is a direct, undeniable parallel to Navidson's ascent into the illogical maze.
And if we accept the idea that this novel's constructed through the lens of Pelafina's illness, the terrifying, shifting structure of the house perfectly visualizes the paranoid, illogical landscape of schizophrenia that both mother and son experience.
We should also mention the companion media. The author's sister, the singer Poe, released an album called Haunted,
which is essentially a narrative sister piece to the novel. Yeah.
Tracks like 5 and 12-minute Hallway and House of Leaves directly follow the book's narrative beats. It's like a different medium trying to process the same set of traumatic experiences.
And it proves that the instability of the narrative extends beyond the pages, out into pop culture.
So if we pull back and try to synthesize the whole picture, we find a novel that is highly polarizing.
Very. It's celebrated for its unique artistry, its use of typology, its complexity. But it often leaves readers profoundly dissatisfied.
And that dissatisfaction comes from the deliberate absence of neat conclusions. The story avoids traditional closure. The ending just fizzles out, leaving major issues like Karen and Navidson's deep marital problems unresolved.
Buried under footnotes and appendices.
Right.
And this lack of resolution, this intentional ambiguity, is the entire point. The novel is not about the Navidsons, it's about the transmission of information.
It reflects the recursive nature of consuming media and history.
Every retelling, from the original film to Zampano's text to Truant's edits, to us, the readers, distorts the original sound.
It proves that we, the readers, aren't passive consumers. We're active participants, shaping the final, unstable truth of the story simply by reading and interpreting it.
Which makes the entire process of reading House of Leaves a perfect reflection of navigating the modern world, constantly assessing source reliability, questioning authorship, and struggling to find stable knowledge amidst an absolute overload of information.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the way the book forces you to confront the limits of knowledge is why it sticks with people.
It reminds us that truth is rarely a stable foundation. It's often just an echo of an echo getting fainter with every step we take.
The source material mentions that Navidson, when he's lost and desperate for heat and light inside the labyrinth, finds a copy of House of Leaves and starts burning the pages one by one to find his way back to reality. So that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. What important knowledge, what core belief or piece of evidence would you be willing to sacrifice page by page in order to find your way back to stability?